Hi folks, this is Jason. Hope you're okay today. It's good to be with you. We're looking at a scholarly article today from a website, Christian think tank, and they allow you to use the material. And so we're looking at christianthinktank.com -messiah.html. It's the article is Messianic Expectations in the First Century Judaism, and it's documentation from non-Christian sources. The guy who runs the website does very in-depth scholarly work on the subjects that he does. I'm going to be reading some of the article and then pausing and giving you my own thoughts on what the guy has said. But it's a very scholarly article and will enrich your thinking about first century Judaism, and hope that it's a blessing to you. I'm allowing comments on for tonight, but when the videos comes fully up on the channel, we'll be closing comments because I'm getting atheists to come and spoil my videos by the comments that they're making. So that's where we'll be going and tonight. So I hope that you enjoy this article. So let's begin. A young person or somebody writes to the guy who runs the Christian think tank. I'm a Christian freshman. I really enjoy your homepage and I printed out a lot to share with friends. One difficulty that I am encountering and that I wish you would spend more time on is the question whether Jesus was a failure as the Messiah of the Old Testament. I have several friends with whom I have taken up the discussion and showed them your answer to the question. However, one girl said that it was untrue that many Jews of Jesus' day saw him as the Messiah. She maintains that the Jews of the day were really not expecting a Messiah, that we Christians in retrospect have interpreted much of the Old Testament as containing prophecies of a Messiah. She even says that the Gospel writers went back and created stories to fulfill prophecy, such as when Jesus tells the people that the scroll of Isaiah has been fulfilled in him. She has a deep sympathy with the Jews and seems to think that someone came in and falsely interpreted the Hebrew Bible as having prophecies of Messiah and then attributing them to Jesus. I would really appreciate it if you would go into more depth on the topic from the perspective of first century Jew. So this article is not my article. It's from a guy off Christian think tank. He gives permission to use his material, and it's on Messianic expectations in first century Judaism. I'm going to be reading the material, and where my own expertise is, where I've read stuff, I'll put my own chip in, but I'll let you know that these are my own thoughts. So I would encourage you to go and read the article. Just type in Christian think tank, Messianic expectation in first century Judaism, and you'll be able to get the information there. Now he writes, apart from the seriously mistaken notion that all of Jesus' contemporaries were of Pharisaic background, end of quote. That's from the Christian think tank. Absolutely goes without saying. Which seems to be based on James' uncritical use of fringe writer Maccaboi. This rather exciting description of the Messianic hope is so out of touch with biblical scholarship of today as to be worthless. What this nets out to is the popular notion that either the first century Jew had no expectation of Messiah figure, or the first century Jewish expectation was a purely natural, human-only regular political leader. Both of these positions are completely mistaken in the light of the hard data we have. What I intend to do to this piece is to demonstrate from the Jewish non-Christian sources that not only was there a Messianic expectation, but that it varied from group to group. That is, that some considered the Messiah to be purely natural in history, a political leader, albeit more powerful than the Romans. Some considered the Messiah to be supernatural, superangelic. Some considered him to be, after history, universal king, son of God, and some did not expect one at all. And to try to minimize attempted rebuttal, I'll try to quote the non-Christian source for the reader's inspection, being sure to avoid passages that are considered to be Christian interpolation, i.e. insertions into the text. I do not intend to be exhaustive in this. Due to the nature, I'm just jumping some of the things he's saying, just so we get to the more meaty bits. Due to the nature of some of these documents, not all of which have been translated into English, some of the citations I will not be able to provide in the text. The major source works I am using are the NWNTI, GTM, BPM, DSST, SSTM, LTJM, CTM, etc. You can go look at the citations. One methodological issue that needs to be brought up here concerns how we will identify messianic passages. If a text describes a future superhuman ruler without ascribing Davidic status to him, will that disqualify the passage? Some actually approach it this way, but the image complex of the messianic figure is far too big to be narrowly approached. One writer, it is inappropriate to speak of a Jewish expectation of the Messiah at this point, because few of the extant late prophecies that shape Jewish hopes even use the term anointed. Focus on the new David or descendant of David, moreover, was by no means the only image of Jewish hopes for a revived eschatological kingship. Some of the scriptural texts most important to the hopes of later generations of Judeans contain no explicit language of anointed or branch, shoot horn, son of David. There was rather, for example, a focus on the scepter, a star, in Genesis 14:9-10, Numbers 24:17. See also Evans in NWNTI 239. Although Messiah, i.e. anointed one from Hebrew, Massa, Greek, Cherin, is often understood in terms of the royal son of David, in reality, messianic concepts in late antiquity are quite diverse. If we understand Messiah to mean one who believes himself to be anointed by God in order to play a leading role in the restoration of Israel, a restoration which may or may not involve the Davidic monarchy, then it is correct to speak of anointed kings, anointed prophets, and anointed priests. All these are categories rooted in biblical and historical precedents. End of quote. So our research, says the think tank, will consider passages interpreted messianically in this sense, not look for a rigid linguistic form, but rather for an eschatological hope of Israel that God would visit his people with salvation. Somehow, I will not exclude from consideration simple apocalyptic passages, i.e. dealing with the end time future events, if there is no data therein concerning messianic individual. One final practical matter. I will create online citations first and then go and type in the textual data. In some cases I have to visit the library, ESP, for some of the rabbinical quotes. So he goes into the sources, the Septuagint translation, the Jewish Apocrypha, the Jewish pseudo-pigrapha, the Dead Sea Scrolls, Philo of Josephus, the Targums, early Tanaic rabbinical writings, historical data. In fact, we'll just go through these sources. Septuagint is the translation of the Old Testament in Greek. The Jewish Apocrypha is 15 books, was written in the 1st and 2nd century BC, and as such gives visibility into the thoughts of the 1st century Judaism. Jewish pseudo-pigrapha, many of these writings predate or are contemporaneous with the New Testament. Dead Sea Scrolls writings either predate the New Testament or are contemporaneous with it.